Welcome, listeners, but take heed. We will say whatever we need
to share our knowledge, thoughts, and joy, and even things that do annoy.
Before we begin, please be aware, we have a tendency to swear.
You have been warned, make no mistake, so join us now.
We're for Fawkes' sake. Welcome to For Fawkes' Sake, a Harry Potter book movie compare and contrast podcast. I'm Ellen, and again, I am joined by two awesome co-hosts, Karlee and Abigail.
Hello.
Hi.
You guys did not sound anywhere near as excited as I was.
I was going to say more, and then I was like, brain stopped functioning, so sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to sound like a perky little hi.
Well, your perky little hi was not as perky as my intro. I'm just saying.
Well, that's okay. I'll get us high by flying into the Phoenix flashback. I did great.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Okay. Last week, we covered the first half of Chapter 16 of Very Frosty Christmas and the corresponding film scenes that loosely corresponded. We went to the Burrow for Christmas, and we were met with sassy twin tandem talk. Harry confides in Ron about hearing Nazi von Douchebag II and Snape talking. Remus is loud and awfully yelly in the movie, but calm, cool, and collected in the books. We see Mr. Weasley talk about how fucked the Ministry is, and Remus reveals how werewolves are being treated. Unless you're watching the movie, in which case you get a whole lot of teenage awkwardness.
A whole lot of it.
Just scods of it. During episode 224, Knife Advice, our Potter pondering was, how do you feel about the changes they gave to Remus's personality in the movie?
G'day guys, it's Jackson here with my pondering. I absolutely hate what they did to Remus with his personality in the Half-Blood Prince movie. Remus would never talk to Harry like that. The only time he's ever yelled at Harry is when he was demanding to know what creature was in his office when he was testing whether Harry was the real Harry. That is the only time he's ever yelled, and that's understandable. But no, Lupin would never treat Harry like that. He would never. That was so wrong what they did.
Hey, this is Jessica calling in my Potter pondering. I actually don't mind the change much at all. No, psych, I'm totally kidding. I actually really do hate the change because he's supposed to be calm, cool, and collected, in the books. Really, the only time we see him get truly upset is way later in the next book. But usually he's rational and composed, and I do truly believe it's all in the directing that he's not, because we've seen where, David plays Remus really well. It's just the director that, always makes shit up. Remus was a really good opposite to Sirius in that way. And, I always felt that James fell somewhere in between. But I agree with what you all were saying, that because there's a time where he does lose his self-control, he makes damn sure that he's in control of every inch of himself when he's able to be. And I think it does his character a disservice to make it seem otherwise. And the first night of the cycle is always the worst, is so strange. Like, I know there's tons of werewolf lore and everything, but I don't know. Didn't seem like that was ever the case for Lupin, at any point before. Especially though, since they chose this anger bullshit instead of Harry being able to talk about his dad and ask about the Half-Blood Prince. Like, why? We already get so little Lupin at this point in the story. That why do they give us now even less by cutting this conversation short? It's very annoying. Like, I really hope the show gets it right. They're going to have a hard time beating this cast. Or even, meeting the level of greatness that they had of the cast in these movies. But at least with these details, I hope that they really do get it right for the show.
This is Zach Thurston, and this is my Potter pondering on how I think they altered Lupin's personality in The Half-Blood Prince. This one is a really good question. I really like this one because I've always felt like the scene in the movie when he's like you're blinded by hatred, and yes, you are, and we can't fight amongst each other, even though he's the one that started the fight in the first place. Gives me vibes of like Dumbledore when he goes, Harry, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire? When in the book he actually, asked it calmly. It gives me very similar vibes because I'm pretty sure, it just off the top of my head, in the book, he joins in, or he overhears Harry talking in that scene with Mr. Weasley, and he goes, many people have questioned it, but I do. I trust him, or I trust Dumbledore, therefore I trust, Severus. And, he admits to Snape keeping him alive with the potion and, in his third year when he was a professor. So it's just, again, I don't understand. I don't know if it's for dramatic effect, just adding the shrewd violence for no reason, especially when it's approached very differently in the book. So who knows? But I've always laughed when I hear that scene because he literally starts the fight, but then he tells Harry, we can't fight amongst ourselves or we're doomed. Gives very, very, Harry, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire vibes. Thank you. Bye.
Megan says, I really admired him as a role model for Harry in the books. He was kind and level-headed. He was a fantastic teacher. I loved his backstory, prowling around the school with James and Sirius. He's a very selfless and likable character in the books. In the movie, we just didn't get enough Lupin. We don't get the backstory. We hardly get any Harry-Lupin bonding time in the movies. He's just not as well developed. And I definitely agree with Karlee that it did not fit Lupin's character at all to yell at Harry at the Christmas party like he did in the movie. Thank you so much for your responses.
Our trivia question last week was, what does Creature give Harry for Christmas? He gives him a large number of maggots.
Yum. Congratulations goes to Jessica Wallace.
Yay!
This is her second week in a row. It's the start of another streak. Can she keep it going?
You never know. For now, let's dive into the second half of Chapter 16, A Very Frosty Christmas, and the film scenes that don't correspond much at all.
Chapter 16, A Very Frosty Christmas, Part 2. Ron falls asleep immediately, but Harry grabs the potions book and turns to the front to find the publishing date from 50 years prior. Upset, since his father or his friends hadn't been at Hogwarts 50 years before, Harry throws the book back into his trunk and rolls over, mind full of werewolves, Snape, Stan Shunpike, and the Half-Blood Prince, before eventually falling into an uneasy sleep. The next morning, Ron loudly reacts to a Christmas present from Lavender, causing Harry to startle awake. Harry puts on his glasses and sees Ron inspecting a thick gold chain. He asks about it and looks more closely to see the charm dangling from the chain reading, "My Sweetheart." He calls it classy and tells Ron he should definitely wear it in front of Fred and George. Ron stutters through threatening Harry not to tell them, and though Harry teases him for the stutter, he assures him he wouldn't. Ron goes back to wondering how Lavender could think he'd even like something like that, and Harry asks if he's ever let the word slip that he'd like to go out in public with the words, "My Sweetheart," around his neck. Ron admits they don't talk much, that it's mainly snogging, before asking Harry if Hermione is really going out with McLaggen. He's slightly cheered when Harry tells him they were at Slughorn's party together, but it didn't go well. The two open their presents, appalled when Harry opens a moldy-smelling package from Creature containing a large number of maggots. Ron roars with laughter until Harry retorts he'd rather have the maggots than the necklace. Down in the kitchen for lunch, everyone is wearing a new Weasley sweater, except for Fleur and Mrs. Weasley. The latter is wearing a new midnight blue glittering witch hat and a spectacular gold necklace. She raves about getting them from Fred and George, who claim to appreciate their mum more now that they are washing their own socks. Ginny reaches over and pulls a maggot out of Harry's hair, causing him to get goosebumps unrelated to the maggot. Fleur calls it horrible, and Ron agrees, eagerly offering her gravy and accidentally sending the gravy boat flying. Bill waves his hand and returns the gravy to the boat as Fleur tells Ron he is as bad as Tonks. Mrs. Weasley glares at Fleur as she sets down carrots and mentions that she invited dear Tonks to come, but she wouldn't. She asks Remus if he's talked to her lately, and he says he hasn't been in contact with anyone much, but mentions that she has her own family to go to. Mrs. Weasley says she got the impression she was planning on spending Christmas alone, and glares at Lupin as if it is his fault she's getting Fleur for a daughter-in-law instead of Tonks. Harry watches Fleur feed Bill bits of turkey and thinks Mrs. Weasley is fighting a long-lost battle. However, he is reminded of a question in regards to Tonks and asks Lupin about her Patronus changing form. Lupin slowly chews his food and starts talking about a great shock or emotional upheaval. Harry interrupts to start describing the new form and speculating what it is when Mrs. Weasley calls out to Arthur about Percy striding across the yard with the minister. Harry looks out the window to see the graying-maned man he first saw in the Daily Prophet, limping behind Percy. Mr. and Mrs. Weasley exchange stunned looks as the back door opens and Percy stiffly wishes his mother Merry Christmas. Mrs. Weasley throws her arms around her son as Rufus Scrimgeour leans in the doorway and apologizes for the intrusion, claiming that he and Percy were working in the area and he couldn't resist stopping in to see them all. Percy isn't showing any signs of wanting to greet the rest of his family and just stares over everyone else's head as Mr. Weasley, Fred, and George all observe him, stony-faced. Mrs. Weasley invites the minister in, a little flustered, but the minister insists he doesn't want to intrude and is only there because Percy wanted to see them so badly. As Mrs. Weasley kisses her son, Scrimgeour says he'll take a stroll around the garden and pretends he doesn't know who Harry is when he suggests he accompany him. No one is buying it, but Harry agrees, knowing Percy wanting to see his family was Scrimgeour's excuse to get to speak to Harry alone. He tells Lupin and Mr. Weasley that it's fine, and they walk across the yard to the snow-covered garden. Scrimgeour then confesses wanting to meet Harry for a long time, but Dumbledore is very protective of him. When Harry doesn't respond, he continues talking about the rumors and Harry being the chosen one.
Harry is sure Scrimgeour is getting to his point now and doesn't immediately respond when the minister asks him if Dumbledore has discussed the matter with him. He decides to share part of the truth and admits they have discussed it. When Scrimgeour attempts to press for more information, Harry apologizes and said it is between them. The minister claims to understand, but also expresses that it doesn't really matter if Harry is the chosen one or not. Harry responds that he doesn't really know what he means, and Scrimgeour laughs, saying of course it matters to him, but to the wizarding community, it is all perception. Harry has a feeling he knows what the minister means and says nothing. Instead, he watches a gnome dig for worms as the minister explains that people believe he is the chosen one and it makes him a symbol of hope. So he should consider it a duty to stand alongside the ministry and give everyone a boost. Harry flat out asks him what standing alongside the ministry means, and Scrimgeour assures him it wouldn't be anything too onerous, just popping in and out of the ministry from time to time. He attempts to bribe him by saying he would have ample opportunity to speak with Gawain Robards, his successor as head of the Auror office, mentioning Dolores Umbridge told him Harry wishes to become an Auror. Harry is upset to learn Umbridge is still at the ministry and summarizes that Scrimgeour is asking him to give the impression he is working for the ministry. When the minister says it will give everyone a lift to think he is involved, Harry cuts him off. He's attempting to keep his voice friendly, but expresses that he doesn't want to give the impression he approves of what the ministry is up to, like locking up Stan Shunpike. The minister's expression hardens as he tells Harry he wouldn't expect him to understand at 16, but again, Harry cuts him off. He points out that Dumbledore is a lot older than 16 and also doesn't think Stan should be locked up. He then flat out tells Scrimgeour that he is making Stan a scapegoat and is trying to make him a mascot. The minister drops all pretense of warmth and asks if he prefers to disassociate himself from the ministry. Harry simply says he doesn't want to be used, and Scrimgeour argues that some would say it's their duty to be used by the ministry. Harry retorts that others might say it is the ministry's duty to check if people are actually Death Eaters before locking them up. His temper begins to rise as he rants about them never getting it right, either with Fudge pretending everything is fine or him chucking the wrong people in jail and trying to pretend the chosen one is working for them. Scrimgeour asks if he isn't the chosen one, and Harry gives a bitter laugh as he replies he thought it didn't matter. The minister quickly says he shouldn't have said that, calling it tactless, but Harry calls it honest. He doesn't care if he lives or dies, only that he helps convince everyone they are winning against Voldemort. Harry holds up his hand, showing the I must not tell lies scar Umbridge forced him to carve into his own flesh, and tells the minister he hasn't forgotten, and the ministry didn't rush to his defense last year when he was trying to tell everyone Voldemort was back. After a moment of silence, Scrimgeour asks what Dumbledore is up to when he leaves Hogwarts, and Harry says he has no idea. Scrimgeour asks if he would tell him if he knew, and Harry admits he wouldn't. The minister declares he would have to find out by other means, and Harry indifferently tells him he can try, but he would have thought he'd learned from Fudge's mistakes. He tried interfering at Hogwarts and isn't minister anymore. But Dumbledore is still headmaster. After a long pause, Scrimgeour says it is clear he has done a good job on him, calling him Dumbledore's man through and through. Harry agrees, says he's glad they straightened that out, and turns to walk back to the house.
The movie scene starts on a view outside the burrow through branches, then to Harry and Mr. Weasley in the latter's workshop as he tells Harry he will have to forgive Remus. His condition takes a toll. Harry asks Mr. Weasley if he's all right and learns that they are being followed, and it hasn't been easy. Harry wonders if he received his owl, and Mr. Weasley says he did, mentioning that Dumbledore traveling is news to the ministry, but that could be the way Dumbledore wants it. He also informs Harry that he knows a bit more about the Draco Malfoy situation, saying he sent an agent to Borgin and Burke's, and he thinks the object that Draco is so interested in is a vanishing cabinet. Harry questions this, and Mr. Weasley explains that they were all the rage when Voldemort first rose to power, because people could slip inside and disappear for a while if the Death Eaters came calling. Harry asks what happened to the one in Borgin and Burke's, and Mr. Weasley tells him it's still there. The camera focuses on Harry's contemplative face before cutting back to the outside view of the burrow, appearing as though someone is watching the house as Remus and Tonks leave. Molly tries to convince them to stay, but Tonks says they should go, whispering the last night of the cycle is always the worst. As Remus stares out onto the grounds, Arthur says his name in concern, and Tonks steps closer to him, calling him sweetheart. The scene changes to Harry sitting on the stairs as Ginny walks up to him in a bathrobe. Harry stands, and she asks if Ron has gone to bed. He looks up the stairs and says, "Not yet," and Ginny glances down and says, "Shoelace," before crouching down to tie it for him. When she stands back up, the two are standing even closer to one another and just stare at each other. Ginny wishes him a Merry Christmas, and they begin to lean in as Harry returns a Merry Christmas. They are interrupted and rush to the front door when a ball of fire flies in and encircles the burrow, as a black smoke figure materializes within it as Bellatrix Lestrange. She immediately turns and runs out of a gap in the flames, and Harry doesn't hesitate to run after her. Mr. Weasley yells for him not to, and Remus runs after him, Tonks on his heels, but the fire closes behind Harry and blocks them in. As they try to deflect the flames, Ginny runs out of the house too, and makes it through a gap to follow after Harry, who is chasing Bellatrix through the field as she taunts him, repeating, "I killed Sirius Black," in a sing-song voice. She laughs and tells him to get her, and then falls silent. Harry loses track of her and stops, looking around through the very tall plants before taking off running again. Ginny is still running after him as well, ending up in some ankle-deep water. She hesitates when she hears someone nearby and quietly calls Harry's name, but it's Fenrir Greyback who steps into view and begins to approach her. Harry comes splashing through the water, running up behind her, and casts Stupefy, which Greyback deflects before turning into black smoke and shooting upward. Harry and Ginny look around and step out of the water as Bellatrix comes from behind them. Remus yells Harry's name, and he and Tonks begin running towards the sound of dueling. Harry and Ginny are back to back fighting off attacks, and Remus and Tonks run through the water to join them. Mr. Weasley also catches up, and the 5 of them hold their wands at the ready, facing outward in a circle. Realizing they are outnumbered, Bellatrix and Greyback disapparate into black smoke and fly towards the house, going straight through it and causing an explosion. As the house catches on fire, Mr. Weasley says Molly and begins to run back home. Everyone else follows, and they make it back to find Mrs. Weasley, Fred, George, and Ron standing outside looking up at their home in flames. Where did they stay?
There's a lot of family there to put up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and can I just say, this is the world's biggest, that's not how it happened in the book.
Yeah,
Yep.
why?
What was even the point of this? Like, why destroy the Burrow? Where did they go in the middle of the night? What happened to the snow?
Ellen is really upset about the snow, y'all.
They're literally on the train, and it's all snowy because it's winter time. And then they get back to the Burrow for Christmas in the winter time. And in the book, is all of this snow, and we questioned whether or not you could grow carrots in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's a marsh with water?
Yeah, maybe I'm with Karlee because it just makes it easy for me to not obsess about it. But, all that fire, it probably just melted. Maybe it was a point to show you how hot the fire was.
Okay,
Who knows?
sure.
It's so stupid, though. Like, it never in any book does it say they live near a marsh, and all of a sudden they live near a marsh.
With, like, these really big, tall, reedy-like weeds,
Mm-hmm.
or, I don't know, maybe it kind of looked like grain, or, like, I have no idea
I
what they
thought
were
it was
running
wheat.
through. Yeah, grain, wheat.
Wheat.
Yeah, it was
Oh, wheat.
weird, but it was supposed to be winter, and then, again, that's not how it happened in the book. And nothing that happened in this movie scene happened in the book. Literally nothing. Except for the fact that they're at the Burrow for Christmas.
Yeah, it's entirely made up. Yeah.
This is just the most unnecessary scene in the entire movie.
Yeah, the only thing I can think is they want you to see, like, it's feeding more into that, like, growing romantic relationship or growing
Awkward relationship.
tension between Ginny and
I
Harry.
feel like they were like, oh, we haven't put anything into this. All of a sudden, here we go.
That's some ST right there.
Yes.
But in the book, the one thing that the book and the movie have in common, they are in fact at the Burrow for Christmas time, as we mentioned.
It's the only thing.
And Harry immediately looks up when that book, his potions book, was published to learn that it was the 50 years prior, which upsets him because he's just like, my dad wasn't there then. This doesn't
Harry
work
does
right."
not use his brain. He's not a Ravenclaw.
I mean, no, that's the point, is the kid is mostly just emotion and luck for a while.
That's true. He is emotion and luck. That is a good episode title.
That is accurate, yes. I absolutely 100% agree with that. What I love about this, and like I said in the last episode, is the lav moment of breathing on the window.
Give us this moment.
Really encompassed this, even though it's not how it happened in the book. But Ron gets to open this Christmas present privately from his lav and reacts so loudly to it. This is what jolts Harry awake, and I would have loved to see that. Like, just Harry just be like, what the fuck? Because that's basically, it's like Ron's like, what the fuck? And Harry's just like, what the fuck?
That is what happens. That's 100% what happens.
And I just would have loved to see that. And then
Why on earth would you give this to me?
And then, like, their interaction over it is so freaking funny because, again, it's another one of those, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And Harry looks a little closer at this gold chain that Ron is holding up and inspecting, and it describes it as a thick gold chain. So this is like some bling.
It's like Flavor
That's
Flav.
what I was
And
thinking.
it's just got this huge gold charm that says,
Instead of a clock.
my sweetheart. And I love the fact that Harry calls it classy and is like, you should definitely wear that in front of Fred and George.
Don't tell them, please, God, don't tell
Harry
them.
doesn't get to be sarcastic in the movies, like, at all.
No, and Harry's sarcasm, especially in this section of the book, Harry's sarcasm
That's
is
the
on
trauma.
fucking point.
It's the trauma.
Don't ruin it for me, Karlee.
I'm not ruining it. That's truthfully, people who are really sarcastic usually have good trauma in
It's
their life.
true.
Let's go.
And
I love my
okay,
sarcasm.
that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's just get depressing. Anyway, Ron stutters as he's trying to, like, don't say anything about her, all. And Harry's like, what, you'll stutter at me?
I would never, Ron, seriously.
these
I would never do that to you.
I know. Like, obviously, he's not going to tell Fred and George about it.
They're still going to find out. They're Fred and George.
They are.
Absolutely. I don't know how you're going to keep that one hidden. Because,
like
Ginny's going to tell him. Like, he's not going to not be able to wear it in front of Lav. And Ginny's then obviously going to see it. And then she is for sure not going to miss that opportunity. You can't.
Yeah,
not after what Ron said to her. He called her a whore.
Wait, what? I missed something here. When did that happen?
He doesn't directly call her a whore.
Says. When he catches Ginny and Dean making out in a deserted corridor, he's just like, you think that I want the rest of the school saying that my sister's some sort of and Ginny's just like, oh, what? So
he was going to call her a slut.
Yeah, we were both like,
Trollop.
Yeah.
He probably would have said a lady of the night. Is that what? A Scarlet Woman? That was what it was.
So he called her a whore. She is absolutely going to get this revenge on him. That's just what's going to happen there.
Well, And
it was well earned.
Yeah.
And then I love Ron is just like, why would she think I'd want this? Again, what the fuck?
Because you don't talk.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Ron says. But Harry, again, still with the sarcasm, is like, well, think, did you ever let it slip that you would like to be out in public wearing a big necklace that says my sweetheart around your neck? And Ron's
I want that all the time.
That's literally, I'm upset I don't have one. But for real, Ron's just like, well, we don't talk much, it's mostly snogging. And then, dun 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 dun, goes, is Hermione really going out with McLaggen?
Shut up. We don't even get to see Christmas morning in the movies.
No.
We just don't get to see Ron get this necklace until they go back to school. And
it's like
just
a background thing.
Yeah, we just get...
And Harry doesn't get to make fun of him for it.
No, but I'm about to make fun of Harry for the whole shoelace interaction because...
Oh, well, I really kind of wish Ron had witnessed that because...
Shoelace.
Should have. But it sort of cheers Ron up a little bit when Harry's just like, I don't know, they were at Slughorn's party together, but I don't think it went well. Harry, you know it didn't go well.
You knew she didn't like him. You knew why he was invited to go with her. But thanks for not being a snitch, man. Definitely hose before bros in this situation.
You know what? It's fine.
Hermione was in a greater need at that point.
Let's be serious. Hermione's really just one of the bros.
She is. The two continue opening all of their presents. Harry gets some good stuff, like the classic Weasley sweater from Mrs. Weasley. But he also gets this package that smells kind of moldy from Creature. And he's going through this whole, like,
from Creature.
He's just like, I didn't get Creature anything. Was I supposed to get Creature something? And Ron's like, well, Hermione would have, but maybe you should open it first before you start
Before you feel bad,
guilty.
yeah.
And Harry proceeds to open this package, which contains a large number of maggots.
This is a good moment because Ron's laughing and Harry's like, well, I'd rather have this than that fucking necklace.
Yeah, I love the teasing. Also, that was our trivia question.
That was our trivia question, yes.
Yeah, still a better gift than your necklace from Lav.
Is it though, really?
I don't...
You know what? You can feed the maggots to
Yeah, the maggots have a purpose that's like life-giving. The necklace has a purpose to brand Ron.
Ron has been absolutely branded in that moment, yes.
And collar. Like collar,
really
leash,
is.
like, yep.
Ball and train.
Telling you, batshit Lav.
Anyway, they head down to kitchen for lunch because now it's their Christmas lunch. And everyone down there is wearing one of the new Weasley sweaters except for Mrs. Weasley, who probably never makes one for herself. And that makes me really sad to think about. But then also she didn't bother wasting any time making one for Fleur, which kind of both makes me
I thought she did
sad.
make one for Fleur and she didn't want to wear it.
No, it specifically said that Harry figured she didn't waste her time making one
Figured.
for her. She could have made her one and Fleur didn't put it on. I feel
think that's
like
more
that is
Fleur.
just as much possible. However, if Mrs. Weasley had made Fleur one, I really want her to knit a picture of Celestina Warbeck on it.
That's how you get her back, Molly.
Yeah, that's what I want. Which I could then see why she wouldn't wear that.
I think I am coming into realizing that Fred and George are my third favorite characters because they're such good boys.
They are! And the reason why Karlee is saying that is because Mrs. Weasley is wearing this beautiful midnight blue witch's hat that's just glittering because it's covered in all of these sparkly diamonds. And she also has on a spectacular gold necklace that I'm assuming does not
look
say
like
my
trash.
sweetheart.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not Flava Flav style.
Right.
Well, you know.
And she said that she got them from Fred and George, who are both like, well, we appreciate you so much more now that we are washing our own socks. And I love everything
Good
about that
boys.
interaction. And then at this point, Ginny's just like, you have a maggot in your hair, Harry. And just goes, maggot, and pulls it out of his hair.
Look, that would have been so much better than shoelace.
I think I would have rather seen the whole getting the maggot out of the
Right.
hair
Yeah.
too, because that was a necessity. Helping him with his shoelace was not.
He's 16. Can he not tie his own shoes? I mean, who would have taught him, honestly? But
Magic.
Velcro
Helpless
shoes.
boy, let
Well,
me
no,
help you
didn't he
with that
try
shoestring.
later on to use magic to tie up his shoelaces and accidentally tie him in a bunch of knots? So maybe he doesn't know how to tie his shoelaces.
I know he uses his
And
to
Ron's
bring
like,
his glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anywho,
He gets
that
them
was
goosebumps.
way better. He does get goosebumps, and it specifically says they are unrelated to the maggot. But Ginny touched him. Oh. Anywho, Fleur naturally calls it horrible. And Ron's just like, oh yeah, it really is. And then just tries and fails miserably at offering her gravy, instead just knocking it everywhere. And then Bill uses his wand to return the gravy to the gravy boat. And I'm just like, but what's in the gravy now? If it was all over the table and stuff, wouldn't it have picked
I
up?
bet it cleans it too.
Well, when Slughorn used magic to put the dragon's blood back in the vial, it was a bit dusty.
Maybe he's not as good as Bill.
Maybe. I don't
William
know.
Weasley.
But then Fleur
Or
is
maybe
just
Molly Weasley's just a cleaner person.
Oh, that's possible too.
That is also
That
true.
Entirely accurate, yes. But then Fleur is just like, oh, you are as bad as that Tonks.
Shut up! Shut up!
Which
I will
is
fight her.
essentially Mrs. Weasley's reaction, but through her eyes, not in words. She sets down some carrots and just goes, I invited dear Tonks to come today, but she wouldn't. And then she turns to Remus and goes, have you talked to her lately? And
I love this.
he says that he hasn't been in contact with anyone much, which is what we learned the night before anyway. And says, but doesn't she have her own family to spend Christmas with? And Mrs. Weasley's just like, maybe, but I was under the impression that she was spending it alone. And then she just glares at him, and we all know why. But Harry is still living in this world in which he thinks that Mrs. Weasley is trying to hook Bill up with Tonks instead of Fleur. So Harry thinks she's glaring at Remus as though it's his fault she's getting Fleur as a daughter-in-law instead of Tonks.
I mean, it kind of is, but also.
But then as Harry is watching, as we mentioned in the last episode, as Harry's watching Fleur feed Bill bits of turkey off of her fork, he's like, Mrs. Weasley is fighting an already lost battle. I just don't see this working out.
I appreciate that Harry is not as easily confunded by Fleur's villainess. Ron is always like, and Harry's like, she pretty, but I'm good. He's never as drooly, stupid.
No, he is definitely not as susceptible as Ron is in this moment.
But I guess
Or any of these moments with
they
her.
show that, I don't know if it's Ron's mind is weak, but they definitely show how things affect him a lot more.
And definitely the first time that Harry encountered Vila, he was ready to
He was like,
dive
oh, I'm
off
going to jump
of
off
that
this
platform.
and Hermione's like,
So I feel like now he knows there's something to fight there and can fight it, and he has the mental strength to do so.
Well, he puts up his shields
Yeah.
like
And
an avatar.
Ron does not and cannot.
My
And
God.
kind of will not. I
And
think
kind of will not. He likes it.
The attention that he feels like he's getting there.
You know, whatever.
What I love about this moment that I also would have loved to get, and obviously we couldn't have since Tonks was
of
in
it
fact
happened.
present
Yeah.
in this moment, and none of this other happened. Fleur was not. But bringing up Tonks causes Harry to remember that her Patronus changed. And in his mind, Lupin is the...
Patronus expert.
Yeah, so he was like, oh, I meant to ask you. Tonks's Patronus changed form. And I love, Lupin is just slowly chewing on his food before he says anything, delaying. He knows exactly why her Patronus
He
changed.
conveniently leaves out the very obvious one of falling in love. It says emotional upheaval,
It says great shock or emotional upheaval.
but he conveniently doesn't say if somebody falls in love. Because Remus, why would you include it?
No, he just leaves you thinking it's all about bad feelings and trauma.
Bad
Yes.
feelings, it's trauma, yes. And so Harry's like, oh, it's because Sirius died.
Right. Because he interrupts him to start describing what it looks like now, and he does start to speculate probably that it was in fact Sirius, but they are...
Oh, that would be so sad.
I know. But then he doesn't get to finish this because this is the moment that Percy starts striding across their yard with the minister in tow, and Mrs. Weasley sees him out the window and yells to Arthur that he's there. And this moment, not being in the movie, is something that just absolutely blows my mind. I cannot, for the life of me, think why they didn't say, we should do this and not set the Burrow on fire.
Is this the one that Chris Rankin said that they didn't even ask him to come back?
It was this one. I don't think he was in the 6th one.
Yeah. No, was he in like the background of random scenes?
Yes, but also, like, yeah, where the movies are concerned, you get like one snippet of Percy to see that he's backing the ministry in one movie, and then like you never see him again.
Yeah.
And I put that in my notes. I'm like, this part in the book is so inundated with really good information.
I would have...
Like, where has Percy been? What has he been doing?
Yeah, I
what
would
the fuck's
have
going
liked
on?
to know why Percy is just absent and then shows back up. But also, the scene that's coming up between Harry and the minister is fucking amazing.
It's important as
and
hell.
It's 7,000 million gazillion infinity times better
Than the Burrow catching on fire?
Yes.
Yeah. Or Shoelace.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I'm very disappointed that in the books you get Percy as the wayward son who eventually comes back home. In the movies, you don't get that.
And he does come back home well.
Yes.
I think that he earns that spot.
He does, for sure.
If there was ever a time for him to choose the right side, he does it at the pivotal moment in the books. But yeah, in the movies, it's like, nope, they just decided to lean into full douche.
Yeah.
I guess maybe they felt like it wasn't important to include him because they left Charlie out of the whole fucking
Who
series.
the fuck's Charlie?
Who's Charlie? He's Ed Sheeran.
Yep. But what makes me really upset about this scene too, that again doesn't get touched, is the fact that the minister is clearly using Percy as an excuse to get to his house and get Harry on his own. And literally flat out tells the Weasleys that Percy really wanted to see them.
God, that's heartbreaking though. Like, stop it.
Yeah, Percy
like,
clearly doesn't feel that way.
Percy clearly doesn't feel that way. And on some level, Mrs. Weasley's gotta know that too. But she's so desperate for it to be true, she just starts crying and hugs him. And I hate the minister so much in this moment.
Yeah.
I like this scene, and I wish it had been in the movie, because Fred and George are staring him down.
I would have loved to see that.
And Mr. Weasley is too, which I like. Mm-hmm. And that proves to me that Fred and George's secondary house is Puff, which I was talking about in the last episode. Their loyalty for their family runs so deep.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
They are so loving and true and loyal to Weasleys.
Yes.
Even Auntie Muriel, they make jokes about her, but they talk about how she's keeping the whole family safe in the next book.
But I love this side of Mrs. Weasley because I love Mrs. Weasley, and it just makes me feel so much for her. Moment. Yeah, and she's so happy that her son is here. She really wants to believe that he actually wants to be there. And she invites the minister in, and she's all flustered. She offers him some perky or some pudding instead of turkey or pudding. Like, it's so freaking cute. But no, we get Shoelace.
Yeah, we get Shoelace. Yeah, my take as a mom really is like, I think Mrs. Weasley is fully aware her son didn't really want to be there, and she just doesn't care. She's happy to see
I think
him.
she's gonna make the most of the moment that she has, because even if he has to be there, maybe she can change his mind that he does want to be there.
Yeah. And the way that Harry handles this situation is clearly because both Mr. Weasley and Remus gave him some background information the night before.
Did Remus leave when the minister came up?
I think he's still there.
Okay. I just was curious because at this point, werewolves are not
he's still there.
Very looked on.
because the minister says he doesn't want to intrude and tries to pretend like he's just there because Percy really wanted to see the family, and he looks
That's
around
the
the
weirdest
table.
reason to come with
right?
somebody.
He sees that, oh, that young man is finished eating. He can show me around the garden. And there's like 7 other people at the table that
You're
are finished
obvious,
eating. So
Rufus.
nobody is falling for the fact that he, A, has no idea who Harry is, or B, actually only wants him to walk with him because he's done eating. But Harry is like, what the fuck, we'll get it over with. And he stands. And both Lupin and Mr. Weasley try to stand too. And he's like, it's fine.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, I got this. And like I said, he's got it because they gave him information the night before. He's prepared for this. He also, on some level, knew that it was coming.
As an adult reading this scenario now, it is the weirdest thing to me that a grown man would show up with my son and be like, oh, well, I just wanted to accompany him on this visit to your house.
Well, they were supposedly working in the area.
Still,
It's still weird.
there's no reason for you to accompany my son to the house if he really wanted to come. What the fuck?
No, that was 100% the excuse to get Harry alone, which he does. And because Harry agrees, he's just
Harry's
like,
like,
whatever,
whatever.
it's fine. And they start walking across the yard to the snow-covered garden. Just saying.
The garden, not the marsh,
No, the garden.
and also snow.
And Scrimgeour is just like, I've been wanting to meet you for a long time, but Dumbledore has been very overprotective. And Harry's just like, I'm just going to let you keep talking because eventually you're going to get to the point here. And sure enough, he's like, there's been all of these rumors about you being the chosen one and blah, 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 blah. And Harry's just like, yep, definitely getting closer to the point, and still doesn't say anything. And then finally the minister's like, has Dumbledore discussed the matter with you? And Harry has this moment where he's like, do I lie to him? Do I tell him the truth? And I'll settle with part of the truth. Yeah, we've discussed it. What have you discussed? You know what? That's between us. And the minister initially is like, oh, I wouldn't want you to divulge any confidences, blah, 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 blah. And in any matter, it doesn't really matter if you're the chosen one or not.
This information, this conversation, this whole spiel is so pertinent to what the ministry is playing at. It just should have been included.
That's what I'm saying.
To understand, because once you read the books, all those plot holes are filled.
Yeah.
Right.
So when you watch the movies, you're like, what?
Well, Abigail, you said you
What?
watched the movies first.
Yes, I did. I watched the movies before I read the books. And I can say Scrimgeour is such a if you don't read the books, he's such a small character. You don't even once he's removed from his position, you don't even understand why the rest of them are like, oh, this is bad. It's like, wait, I thought he was an
I
idiot.
thought we didn't like him.
Except
Wait, what? And it's like, oh, I get
Yeah.
it. The devil,
Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny to me because Harry does this thing that I tend to use on people who make jokes that I don't appreciate, where even though I get the joke, I pretend like I don't, so they have to explain it, and then it makes it super awkward. And that's basically what Harry does to Scrimgeour. He's just like, I don't know what you mean. It doesn't matter. And Scrimgeour is like, oh, well, I mean, of course it matters to you whether or not you're the chosen one. But I mean, to the wizarding community, it's all about perception. And Harry definitely knows exactly what he is saying here, but still decides to just let him keep digging this hole that he started. And just kind of watches as this little garden gnome's digging in the frozen ground for worms and just focuses on that. The minister's just like, people believe you're the chosen ones, which makes you a symbol of hope, and you should consider it your duty to stand alongside the ministry to give everybody a boost.
Wow. Back
All I
off.
can think of is World War II time and all the propaganda. And I'm not really talking, of course, I think about the US propaganda and I'm like, but that made sense.
German
But I'm
propaganda.
thinking about the propaganda over in Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
And it's like,
So Harry just decides to stop being coy and is like, well, what does that entail?
Coming and making appearances.
Yeah, Scrimgeour basically just wants him to be seen coming and going from the ministry from time to time. And goes as far as to say, and while you're there, you could have an opportunity to speak with my successor as head of Auror Office, Gawain Robards, or however you say that name. And he says, Dolores Umbridge told me that you want to be an Auror. We could totally make that happen.
All I hear is Harry going, keep my name out your mouth, bitch.
I'm sure.
Right?
Exactly.
Like, if I were in Harry's position, I would have been like, oh, that bitch is still there? We have nothing to talk about.
And he does
'cause we're
say that.
clearly not on the
Essentially
same
what
side.
he does.
That is, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, so basically, you want it to look like I'm working for the ministry.
And
he's just
approve
like,
of what they're doing.
Yeah, he's just like, yeah, it'll give everybody a lift to think you're involved. And he's just like,
You guys don't know what you're doing, though.
he's like, but I don't want them to think that I approve of what you're doing. For example, you've locked up Stan Shunpike. And the minister then drops his friendly tone. It's become very like, well, I wouldn't expect you to understand you're only 16, the nuances of this kind of stuff, and blah, 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 blah.
And it actually turns out Harry understands a lot more than an average 16-year-old.
Harry
Oh, who would've
understands
thought?
more than a lot of adults at this point.
Right.
That's because they don't have wizarding mental health care.
Yeah, accurate.
Yep,
A lot of
we
these people
still
are
need
stuck
therapy
in
in the
their
wizarding
child's
world.
mentalities from that trauma. But I love, this is when Harry really ramps up his mic drop moments.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this entire part of the scene from this point on kind of becomes a mic drop moment.
Yeah.
But this is where it really starts, because he's just like, yeah, well, Dumbledore's a lot older than 16, and he also doesn't think Stan Shunpike should be locked up. You are making him a scapegoat the same way you're trying to make me a mascot, and I fucking love this line.
It's one of my favorites,
It's
too.
so
That's
good.
like, that's right. You tell him
Yeah.
you are not an image
I'm not a mascot.
to be
I
used.
fucking love that. Actually, I love this entire part. It's just so good. And now that Harry has kind of opened the hostility, the minister is just matching him. He's
I
just
would be
like,
scared to get a little hostile towards Rufus Scrimgeour, truthfully, because Bill Nighy is like, he's scary. Like, I would be like, not want to go toe to toe with him.
Really?
Yeah.
I love the fact that Harry is brave enough to do this. but
I do too.
He's totally a
But he's a
Gryffindor.
Gryffindor.
You're not.
I'm
But-
not. I'm squishy.
Yes. And Bill Nighy plays like all the bad guys really
He
well.
does
He's
really
been
well.
an excellent vampire. He's been an excellent everything he's been.
He's really not even a bad guy in this. He's just not
He's trying
the
to do
best
his role.
leader. Yeah.
Yeah. He's middle of the road. He really is trying to make choices.
And in the
that-
end, he does the right thing by Harry. So
He does.
He does.
protects
Yeah,
him.
he really is trying. Like, I think that's the difference between him and who his real successor ends up being.
Mhm.
Like,
yeah.
he's trying. He's just human and he doesn't make all of the right choices.
He wants to know if Harry's trying to dissociate himself from the ministry, much like Dumbledore is. And Harry's like, no, I just don't want to be used.
Yeah.
But Scrimgeour thinks that some would say it's their duty to be used by the ministry. And Harry's like, yeah, well, others might say that the ministry has the duty to check to make sure people are actually murder munchers before they throw them in the ban.
Well,
Murder munchers. Death eaters. I'm thinking that I'm finding that way too funny.
snack packs, man.
Yeah. At this point, he is starting to get angry because he is Harry. And he does have some temper issues. You know,
It's that little bit
all
of Voldemort in
emotion
him.
and
Yeah.
Or trauma.
All emotion.
And yeah, this is kind of a caps lock Harry moment because he's like, you guys never get it right. We either have Fudge, who's pretending like everything's fine and dandy, or we've got you throwing all of the wrong people in prison and trying to pretend like the chosen one's working for you. And he's just like, so you're not the chosen one? And Harry just laughs and says, I thought it didn't matter.
Yeah. Does it? Or doesn't it?
And again, just bam, mic drop. And then he holds up his hand because he's not done dropping this microphone. It's got a long fall to go.
Yeah, he's still got the cord.
Yeah, he holds up his hand to show off his I must not tell lies scars that Pepto Bitchmall gave him.
Yeah. And she's still at the ministry.
And she's still at the ministry. He's like, I haven't forgotten. I must not tell lies. Remember? None of you rushed to my defense last year when I was trying to tell everyone Voldemort's back. You guys weren't keen to be my friend then.
Yeah.
And then brief moment of silence. And Scrimgeour just completely changed tactics and is like, what's Dumbledore up to when he leaves Hogwarts? Harry's just like,
Bitch,
no
why would I
idea.
know?
Yeah, no
Yeah.
idea. But if you did know, you wouldn't tell me. I definitely wouldn't tell you.
No, but like, why is it your business? Back off.
And then this is just where it's just chef's kiss, because the minister's like, well, I'll have to find out by other means. And Harry's just like, you can try, but you seem cleverer than Fudge. I would have thought you'd learn from his mistakes. He had tried interfering at Hogwarts and isn't minister anymore, but Dumbledore is still headmaster. I'd leave Dumbledore alone if I was you.
Yeah, but I mean, also to that point, the vicious toad is still there, and she was a part of that whole thing too.
Right.
Ugh.
Scrimgeour pauses and is like, well, it's clear that he's done a good job on you. You are Dumbledore's man through and through. And Harry's just like, yeah, glad we got that cleared up, and walks away.
I am Dumbledore's man through and through.
It's epic. It's
right.
fucking up. This is the Minister of Magic. And Harry's just like, fuck you. You're not going to use me. And they thought we needed the Burrow being set on fire over this? I have feelings.
I have questions. I put that as a question. Absolutely none of this is in the movie. We get the weird scene with the shoelace, and then we get the Death Eaters somehow getting on the property.
Not even the Death Eaters. It is literally just Bellatrix and Greyback.
Fenrir. Yeah,
That's it.
that's it.
It doesn't even make any sense at all.
Why are they hanging out? What are you doing? Maybe Fenrir is Delphi's dad.
And they
It's
just like
not, it's Voldemort,
tricked her
but-
into thinking it was Voldemort.
Very easily.
Yeah.
Truthfully. She's
Yeah,
probably
I mean,
really pretty.
Bellatrix could just be a big slut. Like, ew.
I mean,
That
that's kind of the
Scarlet
way
Woman.
they paint her.
That is
Yeah.
the way that they
I
paint
mean,
her.
it's Helena Bonham Carter. Like, she's sexy.
HBC.
Yeah, like.
Now, this is where I have problems with this, because there's supposed to be protections on the Burrow at the moment.
And they could just, like, magically appear on the
One,
property. Ugh.
they can fly. The fuck?
Murder
Two,
munchers don't fly.
at least not without a broomstick. Two, they just appear on the property. Fuck off. Okay.
There's no way they would have been able to apparate onto the property like that.
They're able to find and tease Harry and then easily entice him into a dangerous area, which is not really that hard, honestly, guys.
No,
Come on.
no, his middle name is Harry James Medley Murray Potter.
And then they lure him away from the Burrow, also that they can set it on fire.
Why did they set it on fire? And where did the snow go?
I mean, yeah, and also, again, if the whole point is to eradicate Harry so that he can't be in the way of your dark plans, why do you lure him out of the house before you catch it on fire?
I think at this point they knew it had to be Voldemort, and Voldemort had said, if he is taken, he's taken alive.
Yeah. Well, and I think in this case, as stupid as it is, the fire
I think they're trying to
seems
scare
have
them.
allowed Harry to come through, but then closed to stop anyone from following him.
True. So he's
but
alone.
then the way that Remus and Tonks were
Fighting
trying
the
to
snake
fight
fire.
the fire, it opened enough for Ginny to also get through. And
Also,
then-
what the fuck, Jenny? You never run after a boy. Fuck that. No. No.
Well, she was worried he was going to trip over his other shoelace.
Jesus Christ.
Maybe she didn't get to finish tying it.
Ugh.
Oh, come on, that was funny.
It was.
She's not running to your defense. She's running because, oh God, I didn't finish tying the shoe.
True.
You gave me that while you're down there look, and I stood up to kiss you, but you're going to trip.
I think I hate that moment. They make Jenny such a foolish girl, and she is not a foolish girl.
She's really not.
She is smart and calculating.
Okay.
There are moments when she is a
No,
little
I'm not going to say
foolish.
that. I absolutely 100% agree with you. But I am saying, if I'm being honest, there's no way this scene would have happened in the book, because as foolish and meddlesome as Harry is, he is not dumb enough to run out of the Burrow after Bellatrix Lestrange.
The only place
He
he's
has
ever
promised
felt safe.
Dumbledore he wouldn't wander off.
And it's the only place he's ever felt safe besides Hogwarts.
And especially
So-
with the Burrow on fire. Like, he'd stay and help put it out.
Also,
I just hate the scene.
I hate this scene too, but I will say when Arthur turns around and he goes, Molly,
Molly.
that every time I got goosebumps saying it because it makes me.
I don't hate the acting in the scene.
No,
I just hate the scene.
but where did they stay? Where did they stay?
No, and they never mentioned anything about it ever again. That was it. They just burned it down and that was done.
And then in the 7th one, instead of it being the tall Burrow, it's the short Burrow because they don't have the added on.
I guess they don't need as much space then, but they needed a lot of space for the wedding.
Let's rebuild smaller.
Yeah, I don't.
Let's make sure
There's
none
just
of our
so many
kids
things.
can return home.
We're empty nesters now.
Maybe they did it. Mr. Weasley and Mrs. Weasley.
Like pay them on the
Insurance fraud. Burn it down.
You know, you did mention they talked less about them being in money issues.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the Wizarding World's way of not dealing with the millennial boomerang impact.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But yeah, it was a terrible scene. And it's not how it happened in the book. And I did love the way the 5 of them were standing in that circle back to back, ready to fight. And then the way Bellatrix and Greyback were both like, this isn't going to go in our favor anymore. Poof. Although I don't understand the whole black smoke pony apparition thing.
I don't like it. I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. It's weird. And they don't fly. But apparently they fly. I don't know. It's just
They don't fly because it's supposed to be a huge deal
that Voldemort can.
when they see Voldemort fly.
And then when they
without.
realize that Snape can too. Because he jumped out the window.
Mm-hmm.
I have questions, but we'll get there.
So many questions. So many questions. Actor-wise, we get a little bit more from Natalia, Tana, and David Thewlis as...
Can I be truthful?
Tonks
I don't
and-
know if I like Tonks. That Natalia. I don't know if I like her as an actress.
I like her.
I saw her at Dragon Con, and I was not a fan of her personality.
Oh, really? That's a bummer. But
Yeah.
I like her as an actress. I didn't like the way that they made Tonks.
Mhm.
They were trying to shoehorn her in these scenes,
Mm-hmm.
and she just came across very, 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 very un-Tonks-like.
Yeah, no, not at all.
But again, I don't think that's her fault.
Yeah.
I think that's how the script was written.
But this was also Game of Thrones time, so I think maybe they
Yeah.
were trying to fit her in where they could fit her in.
Yeah, it was. I was about to say I agree with Karlee because I think it was Game of Thrones time and she was just... I think she was the wrong
I think so, too.
actor choice.
I think they
for the role.
wrote Tonks poorly in the movies as well.
Not as poorly as they wrote poor Jenny.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying somebody else would have been like a spectacular Tonks because the writing was bad for the movie. And at the same time, anytime you looked at Tonks, all you saw
Yeah,
was the chick
and I
from
liked her in
of
Game of
Thrones.
Thrones, so I...
I did too.
Yeah, her character was supposed to be like that.
Yeah.
And then with David Thewlis, like, I loved him. I loved him as Remus in the 3rd movie. I don't know what they did here.
David, we just want you to be so
Angry.
relentlessly angry at,
And then, like,
at Dan for no
days
reason.
that you're going to be cranky, and you're just going to stare, and then,
Be on your period.
right? But then I liked when he engaged to protect them. That was very
Yeah.
more so.
Yeah.
That was
He's,
more Lupin-esque.
Yeah.
I guess, with the movies, it's the best way they can show his mourning for the real loss of all of his close friends.
Yeah.
I guess.
I don't know if they went that far. I feel like that's digging way too deep into...
Yeah.
You're right. They're probably trying to make him seem more animalistic than he's supposed to be.
Yeah, that's what I felt. They were trying to show his werewolf side. I did quotes
Again,
for
I
people
don't
who can't
think
see me.
that's his fault, but
No.
I think we should just move along to our Potter Pondering.
Yes. This week's Potter Pondering. How do you feel about them choosing to burn down the Burrow in the movies?
Find the post on our Facebook page and share your thoughts, or call us at 216-526-6792 and leave your response as a voicemail. Make sure you start off telling us your name and then go into your answer. Don't forget, you can also stitch your response on TikTok.
We really look forward to reading, hearing, and seeing them.
I especially look forward to seeing them. Please, for the love of everything, holy guys, post some video responses.
Yeah, nobody ever does it. Jackson does sometimes.
Jackson does sometimes.
I feel like we've gotten like a couple. I
Here
want
and
more. Talk about it. Let us see your faces and hear your voices.
Honestly, if you don't even want to see your face, if you're like, do a picture video.
Yeah.
Like, throw up a picture of the cover of the book and answer the question.
Sure.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah.
But that will bring us to this week's Wizarding Word. As always, we are still accepting Sorting Hat stories, so if you have one and you want to send it in, we will happily read it. But this week we have a Wizarding Word. And that is, Lego is retiring 17, lots of exclamation points,
Yikes.
Harry Potter sets this year, so get them while you can.
I feel like that's going to be a lot of money if you buy them all before they're gone.
So the Hogwarts Express and Hogsmeade Station are staying, and this year they released a Flying Ford Anglia that is going to stay.
Oh, okay.
Which is good, because we love a Ford Anglia.
Yep.
But there are still 17 different sets. So there's the Astronomy Tower, so if you want to kill off Dumbledore, like what happens at the end of this book, you better go buy that one. Spoilers. Or if you want to go visit Hogsmeade Village, you're definitely going to need to get that by the end of July, because those are gone. The Forbidden Forest, the magical creatures, don't take those away. Sad face.
We'll share this whole article too, so you can see which ones
These are
you
in
need
pounds.
to try and get while you still can, should you want to.
Harry Potter and Cho Chang.
Cha-ching!
The Shrieking Shack is also one of them.
Aww.
But there's lots of really cool things that you can buy. You can buy Gringotts. They're going to be leaving at the end of December of next year. So there's lots of really cool things. I would recommend at least buying one Harry Potter set of Legos because we love it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, by the end of 2024.
Which is not that far away
It
anymore.
is
We're
not.
halfway through the year. Weird.
So,
Yep. So check it out. Buy some Legos.
always buy some Legos,
And
man.
send us pictures if you make them.
Oh, yeah. And we'll feature you on our page. Definitely
Absolutely.
on the Instagram page. So,
That'll bring us to this week's trivia question, which is, how much does it cost to participate in apparition lessons? The first one who responds with a correct answer in the code word #12weeks will get a sticker.
another way to get a sticker is to rate and review us through iTunes. If you don't have an Apple account, then you can write us a recommendation on our Facebook page. Make sure to email us at foxsakepod@gmail.com and let us know you did, and we'll get back to you to figure out which sticker you want and where to send it.
Don't forget to find us and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at FoxSakePod. Following us on Podbean at FoxSakePod will get you the episode as early as possible and give you a leg up in answering the trivia question. You can also go to our website at forfoxsakepodcast.com to check out our For Fox's Sake and Harry Potter related merchandise for sale.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we post our weekly podcast episodes, cooking show episodes, vlogs, bloopers, and other random videos.
If you would like to become a patron, you can find us on Patreon at Fox's Sake Pod. Patronage starts at $2 and will get you some awesome perks like For Fox's Sake swag, access to our Discord channel, chats, and more. Check out our page for the details. Any support you can give is greatly appreciated. And join us next time when we talk about the first half of Chapter 17, A Sluggish Memory, and the briefest moment of corresponding film scenes.
Thanks for listening.
We hope you hear us again. I'm Karlee.
I'm Abigail.
I'm Ellen, and we are
For Fox's Sake.